In this video, we're going to look at user permissions. Here, I'm logged into a new server as the admin user. The admin account has full access to all areas of functionality within Statseeker and visibility of all data collected by Statseeker. But we need to specify access to both functionality and data for all other user accounts. In the admin tool, we head to reporting and scheduling, console options, and here we can define our user account defaults. You've got our global default settings granting access to the dashboards, custom report creation, and the console, the dashboard user role, which we'll get into a little later, and the default landing page presented when a user logs into the server. These permissions are automatically assigned to all user accounts upon creation. And here we can apply user-specific overrides to those permissions. I've configured my defaults to be access to the dashboards and the console only with no access to custom report creation. And I'll set the console as the default landing page. Here I've got a new user account, which I'll save. And then I'll log into the server as this new user. And we can see that I land in the console. I have no access to the admin tool or custom reporting components, and there's nothing displayed in the device, group, or report lists. I'll switch to dashboards and open the network summary. All the panels are empty, just like the columns in the console. The permissions we assigned in the console options have granted access to functional components within Statseeker, but the user has no access to data. Data access is assigned through grouping, and there's two ways to achieve this. The first method that we'll look at is in the user account configuration. Back in my admin user session, looking at that user account, we have the group selection. By assigning groups to the user, we grant access to all data associated with the content of those groups. We'll come back to this all groups option in a moment. Instead, I'm going to select other groups, and we have a list of all the groups on the server. I'll select Athens and Barcelona and save the user. Back in the user session, if I return to the console, we can see the assigned groups in the groups list and the devices found within those groups in the device list. But I still don't have any reports. And again, that goes back to our user to group associations. In our user configuration, when I selected the two groups, Athens and Barcelona, what happens is that the user is in fact added to those groups. If a user is added to a group, then the user has permission to view everything else in the group. A group can contain any entity that Statseeker is aware of: devices, interfaces, users, and reports. The Athens and Barcelona groups contain devices, but they don't contain reports. In the admin tool, user profile and grouping, add and edit groups. I select my groups, and we can see the devices in these groups. I'll switch to users, and we can see our new user is also a member of the groups. But if I switch to reports, we can see that neither group contains a report. I can select some reports and add them to the groups, but I've already got a group containing the reports that I want available to my new user. So instead, I'll select that group and add the user. And this is the second method for assigning users to groups. We can assign the groups to the user in the user configuration and achieve the same here in the group configuration. Back in the user session, we have the newly assigned reports group, and we have a populated reports list. There's another groups related setting available to both group and user configuration, and that's that all groups option, which we saw previously. All groups isn't actually a group, rather it's a flag that grants the user permission to access all the data on the server, every report, group, device, interface, everything. If new groups or custom reports are created or new devices added to the network, users with all groups will have access to the new entity without an admin user needing to go and adjust the user account to group associations. I'll revert our new user back to the previous selection of groups, and we can look at the last setting in the user configuration, the admin role. The admin role grants the user admin privileges and access to the admin tool. We can see that while our new user has access to the admin tool, granting the admin role hasn't altered their access to custom reporting or altered their group associations. But as an admin user, there's nothing stopping them heading to the admin tool and updating access to hidden data or functionality as they see fit. To create user accounts with the same level of access as the default admin account, assign both the admin role and all groups. Now, there was a setting in the global defaults relating to the dashboard user role. Let's have a look at the options here. Restricted users. This role was added in Statseeker version 5.6.2. If you're on an earlier version, then this dashboard user role won't be available on your server. By default, restricted users have no access to dashboard content, but an admin user can assign access at a folder or dashboard level, and we'll see that in just a moment. If I confirm that my new user doesn't have the admin role, confirm that the default role is viewer, and that there's no user level override in play, then our new user is a dashboard viewer. Viewers have access to the general, the default and default Meraki folders, and can view but not edit the content of those folders. Viewers also have access to any folder or dashboard that has a viewer role permission. And viewers can also run playlists, but if the playlist contains a dashboard that they don't have access to view, then the playlist will display an alert in place of that specific dashboard. Let's turn our dashboard viewer into a dashboard editor. Back in the console options, and I'll apply an override setting this user as a dashboard editor. Dashboard editors can do and see everything that viewers can, and in addition, they can create personal folders in order to provide a space to create and test dashboards outside of the general folder. They can edit content in the general folder and any folder with an editor role permission set and any folder with an appropriate user level permission. They can move content from any folder where they have edit permission to any other folder with the same level of permission or the general folder. And they can create and edit playlists. Editors cannot update the permissions for a folder or dashboard, including those that they create. That functionality is reserved for admin users. I'll reassign the admin role. Admin users can view, create, edit, move, and delete folders, dashboards, and playlists. They can manage permissions on both folders and dashboards, but they cannot edit the default dashboards folders. That's the default and the default Meraki folders, or their content. Let's update the permissions on this admin-only folder. We could assign a permission for a user or all users with a specific role. Let's say all restricted users can view this folder. Now, the folder level permission is inherited by every dashboard in the folder. I'll jump into this dashboard, go to settings, select permissions, and we can see the inherited permissions. I can also adjust access at the dashboard level, assigning view or edit rights as needed. Okay, that's a quick look at used permissions within Statseeker.